Welcome back to the We Are Here podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Tony.
And today we're joined by the Assistant Director of the Streator Public Library, Tiffany Webster, who is also my wife. We're excited to have her joining us today to talk about our public library and all the great work that they do, connecting our past with our present and driving us forward in the future of our city.
This was a really fun interview. I learned a lot of stuff. I didn't know there were so many titles for people that worked in the library. She threw out a lot of those. And we had a very interesting conversation about the front steps of the library that you guys are going to love. You're just going to love it.
Yeah.
It's peak entertainment.
Yep, look for that.
Yeah. But this was an awesome podcast. You'll learn a lot. Enjoy it, and we'll see you in the next one.
Well, we are here today with a very special guest, Tiffany Webster. You may recognize the last name. I'm very fond of her because she's my wife. But she is also our assistant director at the Streator Public Library. Tiffany grew up in Streator and has been a part of the public library for the last 5 years, and most recently became the assistant director. And so she's also my beautiful bride and the mother of my children, and we're just happy to have her here today. So thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to come talk about the library.
Yeah, so we want to start off a little bit with, like we always do with our guests, your story. And so I'll let you just tell us a little bit about growing up in Streator. I'm interested to hear some of your perspective. We've obviously had conversations about this over the years, but tell us a little bit about growing up in Streator, and what memories you cherish, and how has the town changed since we moved back?
Sure. I enjoyed growing up in Streator. My parents lived in a neighborhood over on the other side of town, very, very much connected with a lot of our neighbors. And, we knew pretty much all of our neighbors growing up, and we played outside with all the rest of the neighbor kids. And I remember going on bike rides down to Oakland Park and playing over there when the playground looked different at that point in time. You know, it was still being used as a school at that time. So it was.
Did it have the old metal slides where if you got like your skin melted off because it was so hot?
I think it did, actually.
On the slide, yeah.
I was never big into the slides, so I don't remember much about those. But
probably those merry-go-rounds that, you just went as fast as you could.
Yeah. Anyway. I just remember there were so many trees there. There still are. It's a beautiful park.
Yeah. And
we lived within walking distance or bike riding distance from that. So I remember doing that and really enjoying that being a really fun family time. I was homeschooled growing up, and so we had a lot of freedom to go and enjoy the outside and go different places and things like that. I remember growing up, playing hide and seek in the neighborhood and playing games like that, and we would be out until dark. My parents would be sitting on the porch with some of the neighbors, and it's a very nostalgic thing to think about doing that, because I feel like we don't see that all the time anymore. And obviously here we're not in quite the same type of neighborhood, but it was nice growing up in a neighborhood like that and playing with kids.
Yeah, you and your brothers and your family were kind of the previous generation of the homeschool community. I guess this is a good opportunity to talk a little bit about that. Primarily talk about the library today, but we're kind of in on the next generation of that, I guess, or maybe even a couple generations removed from that. But Streator has always had a solid homeschooling community.
Yeah.
That you grew up in, kind of the original, the OG crowd, I guess, for that group. But just really, really neat to see that continues with our generation and our kids. So
yeah, and that group has expanded quite a bit, especially in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that support as a homeschooler.
Yeah, dozens of families, right?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know the numbers offhand, but there's quite a few families that are involved. Yeah. Not just from Streator, too, the surrounding area as well. We have people who join us from Morris or Grand Ridge or, some of the areas around Streator as well. So that provides a good support, especially for families who are out in rural areas, where they don't have as many connections maybe.
Yeah. So obviously we left, went off to college, and we got married and moved down south. Then we came back home. What was that like coming back home when we moved back?
It was exciting to come back home. Just being able to have our kids close to family was a great opportunity that I didn't know if we would ever get. When we first got married and you went into ministry, there's always the possibility that you're going to be traveling a little bit farther, for ministry opportunities and things like that. So coming back home was great. And the transition was still difficult because we missed people in Havana where we were. And it was hard to leave what we had known for 10 years. But coming to Streator, where we knew people here, we were familiar with the church here, and we already had so many connections, made it so much easier than going to a brand new place.
Yeah.
And our kids frequently say that they love it here, which makes my heart happy that they love Streator, which is where we grew up. And so now they get to grow up here too.
Yeah.
I can't believe you guys have been here for 5 years already.
Yeah.
It feels like one.
Yeah.
Going on year, it's like 5.5 years is crazy. Where'd that time go? But
it flies.
This has always been home.
Yeah.
Even when we lived down south, but it's changed a lot. Mm-hmm. So what have you seen? What are some of the changes that you love about Streator today?
I was thinking about that over the last couple of days, especially, and the Streator that I remember from growing up seemed like a small town. It seemed there were a lot of the way a lot of the businesses were set up, the connections with neighbors. It was very much a small town type of mentality, and I mean that in a positive way. Yeah. You have that familiarity, you have that closeness with people, and I still see that in Streator, because people here are amazing. You're asking for volunteers or support, and people come out. They respond to that, and that's great to see. It's fantastic. I think one of the biggest differences I've seen is kind of the modernization of some of the business models here, which is really exciting because you can keep that small town aspect and that small town, those small town connections, but then you can have larger businesses coming in. You can, have people coming in for tourism, like some of the summer festivals that they're doing. We're drawing thousands of people now, which is incredible. That's amazing.
Yeah. The park becomes a center of all that. The bandstand there and pavilion, and it really has grown in its culture. Like and that kind of sounds weird, but I almost feel like we become more of ourself in a way. Like this is what makes us great, and here's more of it.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. A lot of the things that happen in town are new, like they're new things that are happening, but it also points us to the past. Yeah. Like everyone's like remembers the way things were years ago, and it points back to that, but it's still fresh and new. Yeah. That's kind of how it feels.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's very appropriate for our town because we do have a lot of interesting and neat history that I love sharing that with people who just recently moved here or maybe they grew up here and they haven't never heard it. So I think that's really a cool thing to be able to share with people.
Yeah. So part of that history, part of that culture, the library has always from a long time ago been a kind of a center of a lot of those cultural things in our town. So what led you to a career in library work? Obviously, I know that story, but our viewers don't. So
I don't know the story.
Tony doesn't know the story.
You don't know the story.
But tell our viewers, tell Tony what led you into library work. What made you fall in love with the library originally, and tell them a little bit about how you got into that work, even before we moved back to Streator.
Yeah. Well, unsurprisingly for anyone who knows me at all, I have always been a bookworm. I grew up reading, and when I was, I think probably in junior high, I wasn't very old. I was barely a teenager, and we were in walking distance to the library from where we lived. So my mom would let me go and walk up to the library all by myself as a junior hire, and I would go and spend all afternoon reading at the library. And some of my fondest memories from that time are me spending days in the library. And so I knew all the librarians, I was familiar with the entire building, and I had my favorite room, which is the historical room, the flag room. It looks different now, but that's still one of my favorite spaces. And so when I got old enough to have a job, the library happened to be hiring for a clerk, not a clerk, a page, who is the person who manages the books to put them away and to organize them on the shelves.
Oh, you got to know the Dewey Decimal System for that.
Yeah, you do, actually. You don't have to have it completely memorized, but you do have to be familiar.
You got to have it on lock, I bet.
Yeah.
She does know the Dewey Decimal.
I'm sure.
I've tested her on it.
I don't know all the intricacies of it, but I am familiar with it. But so, yeah, I started out doing that. It was like 10 hours a week, and it was my first job, and I loved it. I did that for about 2 years, and then I left for college. And then, like Paul said, after that, we got married and we moved to Havana. And I actually was able to work at a library in Havana eventually, too, because the library, any library, just would continually draw me back. Because it was a place that felt like home, and those were my people, so to speak. So then when we moved back to Streator, one of the first things that I did after we got our address changed and, our paperwork changed and things like that, I went in to get us a library card because that was important to me. And I knew that was something that we were going to use with the kids. Absolutely. So I went in and I was talking with some of the staff there, and I was asking about book clubs and things like that, and happened to mention that I had worked at a library in Havana and had helped start a book discussion there in Havana. And Melissa Badger, who is our director now, she was at the desk at the time. She was a circulation manager. And she and another staff member looked at each other, looked back at me, and then looked at each other again and said, "Are you looking for a job?"
You want a job?
And I said, well, I don't know. We had only been here not even a month.
Yeah.
And I said, maybe, I don't know. And they said, well, you should apply. And so I joke with Melissa that it's her fault that I'm still there. So if I drive her crazy, it's all her fault. It's all her doing, which obviously is a joke because we get along great.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I've been back to the Streator Library, and it was really kind of a full circle moment for me to work there as a high school student, as the page, and then come back and be able to work there now.
Now you can facilitate all the little junior high kids that are walking into the library, reading books all day.
Yeah, and I love it.
Well, and the amazing thing, so I know a couple more details. So when we were in Havana, part of your job later on, working at the library there, was to lead a small town library south of town.
Yeah.
So there's another small town called Bath, south of Havana, that had a public library, one-room library in their town or village hall or whatever you want to call it. It was an old school that they turned into their village hall, and so you were kind of put in charge of that. I mean, you were put in charge of that, and got to run your own library for a little while too, and you had your own junior high library kids there too that would come to that library. That
was a great time. That was really fun. It was, again, very nostalgic because you're in this little tiny village, in this little village library, and it was like something out of a fairy tale. Because
300 people in Bath, probably.
Oh, I think maybe. I mean, it was tiny, little sneeze and you miss it town.
Yeah.
And, there I am. I come and I unlock the door and open my little one-room library, and, I can decorate it. And we decorate for Christmas and holidays and have, crafts and games and things where the local kids could come in, and they would sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes, it would be totally empty, and I would be there all by my lonesome. But other times we would have people come and visit, and they'd stop and talk for a while. We talk about books or what was going on, and I really enjoyed that time.
Our kids loved it too. They loved coming out there to see you and bringing them out there. So I thought I'd bring that a little bit of nostalgia back. But so moving to today, what's your role today at the Streator Public Library?
So originally when I was hired on, I was in information services, which our information services department mostly manages patron questions. Obviously, all of our staff helps at the desk with patron needs. But information services specifically manages all of our programs. So they plan, implement, and run all of our programming throughout the year. And so I started out doing that, which I really enjoyed doing that. It was a little bit overwhelming at first because I became, the person who was planning all of it and had to pull it all off, which was a lot more than I had done in the past. Mm-hmm. I had experience with that, but, not quite to that level, to that extent. So I started out doing that, and then I started noticing that, we weren't reaching out very much to some of the local schools. Obviously, we had connections with them through parents and kids that would come in, but we weren't really going out and doing anything like that. So I mentioned to our director at the time, do you think I could go to Head Start and, just start reading to the kids and connect with them? And because that was something I had seen done at the library in Havana. They would frequently go and do school visits. And she said, yeah, we can do that. So we had to kind of juggle where, when I was doing that, I would have to be away from the desk. So we would have to fill up that time. And as I found more opportunities to do that, we started realizing that, maybe we need to adjust my role a little bit. So then our director at the time moved me to outreach services, and I became the outreach coordinator. So I started doing more of those school visits and connecting with kids and teachers and just people from the community to go and read to the kids, to go and talk to them about the library, to talk about programs and things like that, especially before the summer, in the spring semester. We would do a big push for our summer reading program to get them involved, to let them know what was going on. And then over the last year or so, we've had some transitions in leadership, and Melissa Badger has come on as our director. And so when she came on, she was already familiar with what I was doing in outreach, and I was still somewhat involved with leading programs. And so she said, I want you to be the assistant director. I want you to be there to help. And, she said, you're already taking leadership. I just want to put you in this role. And I said, okay, that's what we want. And we talked about it a little bit, and so I could familiarize myself with what that role would look like. Yeah. And I said, can I still do outreach? Because I still want to go and read to the kids, and do those things. She said, oh, yeah, absolutely. So, we've managed to kind of blend some of these roles together. And I'm happy with it. And I think everyone else on staff is happy with it, too, as far as I know. Yeah. So. Well,
and I can tell you as a patron, I see, obviously knowing being your husband, too, just seeing your work changing, it just seems like this is just such a good season for the library. You've got a great team. Melissa's doing a great job as director, and the kind of the vision has changed a little bit. Not the mission. I mean, the library is still there accomplishing what it's always been accomplishing, but the way those things are being accomplished are just, it's just been so great to see how things are really firing on all cylinders. Mm-hmm. And the library, I think is the best it's been since we've been back, since I've been interacting with it more and more in the last 5 years. So it's just really great to see. There's also a lot of good history at the library. So, and our library is somewhat unique in a lot of ways. So tell us a little bit about that history, about the library itself. What makes our library a special place?
Yeah, I love talking about the library history, and we actually have a lot of people who come from out of town to visit because we are a historical building. We are Carnegie Library. The library began in 1903. That's when we were open. Construction actually began a year before that. It began in 1902, and then we were opened in 1903. But Ralph Plum, who was Streator's first mayor, was a friend of Andrew Carnegie. And so when there was a ladies' association who collected books and created a library for Streator, a public library. And it was very small at first. And they just used a room on Main Street. I believe it was above the bank, what used to be Union Bank and is now Central Bank.
Yeah, Mid-States.
And I think there were a couple other spaces that they used over the years as they expanded. And so they needed more space. And one of those ladies was Mr. Plum's wife. I don't recall her first name offhand. I apologize. And so they worked together to petition Mr. Carnegie for a grant for the library. They originally asked for $10,000, but because of Carnegie's relationship with Colonel Plum and his reputation, his positive reputation, Carnegie awarded Streator $35,000 for the library, which was a huge amount at that time.
In 1900?
In it would have been early 1900s, probably 1901, 1902.
That's an insane amount of money.
It's an incredible gift.
Do the math. Find one of those inflation calculators.
Oh my goodness.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It was so much more that they had even asked for.
Yeah.
And so they were able to design and build this beautiful building that we have now. And I will often do tours when we have people coming in for tours of the library. I will lead those usually. Yeah. And I love to point out some of the architectural details that we have that are original to the building. Our front steps, our front entryway is all the original design and the original construction. It has had to be restored over the years because when you have a 100-plus-year-old building, it starts to fall apart. Yeah. But that is all part of the design. When you come up the steps, there's a light over the doorway, which was designed that way because it was supposed to represent the enlightenment that people would gain from coming to the library. And so it's very symbolic, a lot of the design details. And then, of course, we have the original stained glass throughout the building, the original fireplaces, even some of the original furniture or furniture that was in use early on is still in use at the library.
Yeah. So give us a little bit more of a kind of a mental tour into the building. So you've got...
Before we get into that.
Yeah, how much...
I did the calculation.
Yeah, I see that you're doing calculations.
$35,000 in 1903 is worth $1,252,029.55 today.
Wow. And 55 cents.
And 55 cents.
You got to get the 55 cents in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
incredible.
that's not pocket change.
Yeah.
Well, and Andrew Carnegie built... do you know how many Carnegie libraries there are?
I don't know offhand. I know it's... I think in the hundreds, perhaps the thousands across the country.
Havana's was a Carnegie library.
Correct.
You know, there's just so many of them still. I mean, a lot of them I'm sure have gone into disrepair or anything like that.
Sure.
But a lot of them are historic sites, and so it's just incredible for our town to have that heritage and to kind of be connected with that period of growth in our nation.
Yeah.
In that early 1900s.
We are one of the oldest libraries, the oldest Carnegie libraries still in operation as well. We're not the oldest, but we are, we're one of the older libraries that's still in operation as a library because a lot of those buildings were designed as libraries. And then eventually they just fell into disrepair too badly to be of use, or the needs of the community changed, and the library building wouldn't be able to accommodate that. Right. So some of those buildings are still around, but they're not being used as libraries all the time.
Yeah. So you walk up the front steps, which are the original
Yeah.
steps, limestone.
I
think,
believe
or-
they're
I don't remember what-
sandstone.
sandstone, yeah, something like that.
Some sort of stone.
Some sort
Yeah.
of stone, yeah. I know there's something special about them. I can't remember exactly what
Yeah.
it was, but it's kind of a different material. They're not just poured concrete,
Right.
You know,
They are footsteps to knowledge.
they are.
That's why they're
and
special.
enlightenment with
That's
the
right.
light at the front door.
It's very poetic.
Walk in, see the front circulation desk.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what some other amazing things that people see. Just give them a little bit of a taste, and then
Sure.
of course you need to go see it for yourself. Too.
Yeah.
take a tour with.
Yeah,
Tiffany.
we would love that. When you walk in, we have the large circulation desk, which actually was renovated and installed in 2011, I believe. We used to have just 2 desks there at the main entrance, but not as many places to sit. So as we increased staff, we needed more places for people to sit. And then obviously we digitized the catalog too. In the early 2000s, I believe. So that required computers instead of the card catalog as it was. You know, when I was there as a high school student, we were still stamping cards and, stamping books with dates on them. And now that's all digital, obviously, so we can keep a lot better track of it. And then off to one side, you have the children's area, which is continually adapting. We have activities there all the time. We have coloring pages and our scavenger hunt that goes on all the time year round. We have games and toys and obviously a whole selection of books for all different ages. And then on the opposite side, we have the computer area, which houses about 10 computers that are all for public use, printers and things like that. And some of that, I can't say everything about some of the improvements that we're making, but we were awarded from the state of Illinois a very large tech grant.
There's more coming.
There's
Yeah,
more coming,
yeah.
and we're really excited about it. We're going to have some more resources available for the community as far as things like computer use and printing and some of those things. We've got some exciting things on the horizon that we're setting up. And then, you go through and you've got fiction downstairs. We have a room specifically set up for teens. And we are also going to be adding to that through our tech grant. So come and check that out soon when you get a chance, because it's really going to be fun for teens. So help us spread the word on that. If you have teens that like tech, then they might want to check out the library in the next couple of months. And then upstairs is where we house our nonfiction collection, and we have 2 large rooms up there that we use for programs and community meetings. The Soderstrom room was recently renovated, and we were able to put a large pull-down screen up there so we can do presentations and movies and things like that. That space is also available for community use. But I will say that it's very busy up there. So if you want to use that community space, you need to let us know ahead of time, because we have lots of things going on.
Don't just show up and say, hey, I want to use the room.
Yeah, don't just show up, because there's probably somebody that's already using it.
Nice.
Depending on the day. So, which is great.
So there's still some artistic features to the dome. Of course,
yes.
The newly restored dome.
Oh, man, that looks good.
Yes.
That looks really good.
Yes, thank
Was
you.
that last year or 2 years ago?
It was.
I think it opened last year.
I think it was last year.
I have some notes on that, actually.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the dome, how that came about, what the restoration looked like. You know,
Yeah.
There was a
So-
giant platform when you walked in
Yes,
for a while.
it was a little messy and a little chaotic for a while, but it was controlled chaos, I guess you would say. Because, anytime you're doing renovation, it's a mess and it's chaotic. So we started the restoration in February of 2023, and then that went through September of that same year. The first phase was to repair some of the internal structure and rewire up there, because there were lights all through the dome, but we were not able to use them for the longest time because since it's so high in the air and so difficult to access, the regular incandescent bulbs would burn out so often that you'd have half your lights lit and it would look terrible. turning it on, you'd have like 3 out of 5 bulbs that would light up, and it just looked like, we didn't want people seeing that. So we would leave them off. So the first step was to repair any cracks, because there was some cracking that was happening up in the dome, which was very concerning when it's right over your main workspace.
Right.
So those were repaired. Rewiring was done. The original dome also had a skylight that was originally you could see out all the way outside.
I didn't know that.
But as skylights often do, this one leaked. And so it was eventually boarded over to prevent any further damage from water. So what we had done was to put in lights up there along with a frosted glass cover to make it appear like a skylight, to kind of bring in that original design without having to worry about the damage of an actual skylight. So now that's part of the design, which is really beautiful, and it's really fun to be able to come in and look up and see everything lit. The paintings have been restored. Parma Restoration from up near Chicago came and did all of our art restoration. They cleaned all of our paintings because in 1945 there was a fire in the basement. At that time they were using an oil-based furnace, and there was a fire, and so when the smoke came through the building, it went right up into the dome because of the design. And that smoke was very thick and oily and coated those paintings and made them several shades darker than what was originally intended. So that was all cleaned and repaired. And some fresh paint for the dome. It was getting a little dingy looking. So we had some fresh paint done and had color added on some of the architectural details. There are flower details all through the dome. And so we had some color added on those to bring that out more, because those are actually individually carved pieces.
Oh, wow.
And not just, it's not like an optical illusion. They're actually 3D pieces up there. So
some great history there too. I know Dave Reed has kind of unpacked some of that a little bit with us before. I don't remember if it was on the podcast episode, but he's a great resource and on
absolutely
part of the library team there. So library board, and so great resource. Of course, there's a little bit more in the tour as well about that. Some other historical pieces there, but. Just a lot to go and even just go as a location to check out, just a historical location.
It's a beautiful location. We went there last year for prom. We took pictures in the library for prom, and it was just gorgeous. We were up on the second level where the dome is behind you. And
up on the landing.
Yeah, up on the landing. And it's just beautiful, especially since it's been cleaned. Like, it looks brand new.
Yeah.
It's bright, and it was nice.
Yeah, it makes for good pictures, absolutely. That spot, the staircase, both inside and outside, are popular for prom pictures, and we welcome people to come in and do that. We just ask that you respect the space and our staff, which people generally do.
Yeah, I don't even think we asked. We just showed up and said, "Hey, can we?" Well, I mean, we asked when we got there, like, "Hey, can we take prom pictures?" And they're like, "Sure."
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely.
We'll be quiet.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Because it is a library.
No one will shush you.
Right.
Generally not. Generally not.
The thing I love about the library is that it is kind of that meeting space of history and current events and current, needs of the community being met. And it's really that intersection of all of that. There's a lot of history, but there's a lot of movement forward too. And that really is one of those unique roles that a library fills in a community. It is one of those third spaces that kind of fills that niche need in a lot of general ways. So what are some of those needs that the team at the library is commonly meeting? How has the library changed in those roles, grown in those roles in recent years? You talked a little bit. I know you can't talk about everything that's coming, but just kind of list off some of the things that the needs that the library meets that people can come. Maybe they want to come see the history. Maybe they want to come and learn or grow in a certain way. So what are some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, our mission at the library is multifaceted. So we obviously try to be a point of information, whatever that means, whether that's books or media or internet resources. We try and be the go-to place for information for Streeter, because as a public library, that we consider that our primary function is information. We like to say we deal in information. And then also we strive to be a community space. So that intersection that you're talking about really is one of our primary purposes. We recognize that sometimes there aren't very many community spaces where people can just go and be or go and meet and not have to spend money, not have to have a commitment or a subscription or anything like that. Obviously, we would love for you to get library cards, and yes, we will absolutely do that. But we also welcome people just to come in and meet with friends. Actually, this week when I was at the library, I saw a couple of moms that they just came with their kids, and they were just meeting up at the library. It was fantastic to see. They were doing the scavenger hunt. The kids were talking and playing together. The moms were talking and playing together. And they were all over the building because they were doing the scavenger hunt. And, sometimes the kids were a little bit noisy, but that's okay because that's what we're there for. We're there
is a
for
public
the community.
space.
It's a public space. Yeah. And again, obviously we want people to be respectful of the space, and they were. They were using it exactly as we intended it. And so some of the things that we provide faxing service for a small fee, printing, copying. We can do scanning to email or scanning to digital. We've had people come in with like CD-ROMs to try and digitize those, and we try and accommodate things like that as much as we can. We even have people come in asking tech questions. Can you help me figure out how to work my device? And obviously that isn't always our primary role, but if we can help, we definitely will. Mm-hmm. And then again, just providing an avenue to get their hands on materials. We've had people ask for not just general reading material, but books for classes, books for projects that they're looking for.
Research,
absolutely.
The library has saved us hundreds of dollars over the years because we homeschooled for a long time. Mm-hmm. And some of the, some books you just have to buy because you have to have them. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, hey, the library, if you don't have it, you can get it.
Yeah. Yep.
And so over the years, it saved us hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. Our interlibrary loan system is pretty expansive. We actually have 2 different systems. So if we can't find what you're looking for in our regular catalog, if you just talk to one of the library staff, we can take that request and plug it into our secondary system, which covers a lot of college libraries, educational libraries from all over the state. And it allows us to get some really kind of niche type material. I know I've looked for some things. Yeah. I've looked for some things for you that we couldn't find anywhere else. Yeah. But we found it through the system.
Is really expensive on Amazon.
Yes.
Can you find it for me?
Yes,
I call her my book dealer.
That's true. That's true. And then just recently, we also started a job search program, which I think will be really helpful. We hope that it will be helpful. We've partnered with IDES, which is the Illinois Department of Employment Security, BEST Incorporated, which is the Business Employment Skills Team. And I am reading this to make sure that I get all my names correct here. And then I think we've also partnered with the Illinois Department of Human Services, kind of as a multi-operation program to help people find jobs. Yeah. So that provides in-person job hunting, information for where to find jobs, how to write a resume, places to look for jobs online, information about filling out applications and things like that. And that happens every month, the first Monday of the month at the library. You do need to sign up for that so we know that you're coming. And all that information is available on our website where you can sign up and you can get help with finding a great job.
Fantastic.
And what is that website?
Yeah.
It's streeterpubliclibrary.org.
All right.
Good. We'll put links to that in the description as
Yeah.
well. Well, dear, thank you for sharing so many good things about our library. Do you want to just kind of in general, some calendar events, or you've got summer reading, you got different times of year where you have certain things going on. Share some of that with our viewers. Tell them where to find more information. Obviously, the website, but yes. Why don't you share some of the calendar events, and then we'll talk about where the library is, how to get in contact with them.
Sure, absolutely. We have our programming seasons generally follow the general calendar. So spring, summer, fall, and winter are our programming seasons, and we have some big events that happen throughout the year. In the springtime, we do our Mad Hatter's Tea, which is all Alice in Wonderland theme, which is a perennial favorite of pretty much all of our library staff.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of nerds around there, so we have that going on in the springtime. And then obviously summer is our big ticket season where we try and get lots of kids involved in reading to prevent what they call the summer slide, where if they spend those 3 months not reading anything, they really have a difficult time jumping back into school. So we try and kind of bridge that gap as much as we can.
There's always something going on at the library in the summer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Always.
And really, we've expanded our programs calendar even more. So as much as is going on in the summertime, we kind of recreate that during the other seasons as well. So I would say that there's pretty much something going on at the library all year round anymore. This fall, something that we're getting ready to do, we just did our Harry Potter event, which was really fun. I got to live out my wizarding professor dreams in that and do a little magic at the library combined with science, so that was really fun. We're doing a haunted house event at the end of October, and we're going to have Christmas programs coming up, and then we'll be jumping back into spring. So there's always something going on. We try and plan events all throughout the year for all age groups, and we try not to leave anybody out, and we try and be really responsive to what the community is asking us about too. So if there's a program that you're not seeing at the library that you would really like to see implemented, we would love to hear about that. And our staff is really great about adapting, and we have tons of great ideas through all the people that we have there. We have so many creative people at the library, and like you said, we really do have a great team. I love working with them and love seeing the creativity that comes from just about everybody on staff. It's really a team effort. So we would love to hear from the community. If there's something that you're not seeing that you'd like to see, then get in touch with us. You can call us, you can email us. Like I said, all of that information is on our website at streeterpubliclibrary.org.
Yeah.
And we're also on Facebook and Instagram, and we post things there pretty frequently. Try and keep that updated.
Including my favorite social media saga, the hours posts were amazing.
Yeah. Now, I do have to give a little credit to the Reddick Library in Ottawa, who we kind of borrowed that idea from. So Reddick, if you're watching, we appreciate you. We see you.
Yeah.
Kind of our buddy library over there in Ottawa.
It was so fun. So what the website again? We'll put it in the descriptions, but go ahead and share it one more time.
Yeah, it's streeterpubliclibrary.org.
Okay, and then Facebook and Instagram. Where is the library located? So anybody, maybe they're not quite as familiar with Streeter, or maybe you are familiar with Streeter, but tell them where you're located and how to get in there and what's the best way to even get into the building. And all
Sure,
those things.
Absolutely. We're at 130 South Park, so we're just a couple blocks from the main park in Streeter, or a couple blocks from Walgreens and the main downtown area, if you know where that is. Our parking lot we have two entrances. We have handicap entrance and access for our entire building. So if you need that, then please make use of the elevator. That's at our back entrance, and then obviously the front. We also have the book drop out in the back of the library. So.
I've frequented the book drop for a while. It felt like every time I left the house, man, he's like, "Oh, can you drop these off of the book drop?" You got it.
Hey, that's the best way to do it. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're running late. You just pop them in there. They'll get taken care of.
Yep. You don't have to get out of the car.
Nope.
No. There you go.
Well, thank you very much for being here with us. I think you're my favorite guest we've had.
Oh,
so,
thank
I know
you.
are. So, love that we get to partner together, and our kids obviously benefit from our library. So, so check out our library. Go there today. Get your library card if you're in town. It's free if you're in town, or what's the cost?
So if you're in the taxing district, if you pay city taxes, your fee is already included in your city taxes.
I say free, but
it's,
you're paying for it.
You're already paying for it, so you might as well use it.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the taxing district, it's $55 a year, which may sound like a lot up front, but like Tony said,
get a lot for that $55.
It's a big savings. I mean, you're paying more for a streaming service than you are for that, or Audible, something like
Kindle, all those things.
Yeah, that usually equates to 2 or 3 books.
Yeah.
Unless you're buying them secondhand, but either way, it's a great value, and we have a lot to offer. Right. So we would love to see you.
Well, thank you for being here with us, dear, and we'll see you next time on the We're Here podcast.